In the heart of the American Midwest, Ohio stretches out in a tapestry of rolling hills, ancient forests, and tranquil farmlands. Here, the land seems to breathe with a quiet energy, its contours shaped by centuries of wind, water, and the slow march of time. The forests are often shrouded in mist at dawn, the air cool and heavy with the scent of earth and leaves. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy, casting shifting patterns on the forest floor and illuminating the hidden world beneath the trees. In the east, where the land begins to rise into the Appalachian foothills, the forests grow deeper and the valleys more secluded. Here lies Minerva, a town whose name is whispered in the annals of American folklore. The roads that lead to Minerva wind through thickets of oak and hickory, their branches arching overhead to form natural tunnels. The landscape is marked by a sense of isolation, as if the modern world has only brushed lightly against these woods. At the edge of town, the forest presses close, its boundaries blurred by fog and shadow. Here, history and myth intertwine, and every stone and tree seems to hold a secret. For generations, the woods around Minerva have been a crucible for stories, tales of the unknown, whispered beneath the ancient boughs and carried on the wind. The reputation of these woods has drawn the curious and the brave, each seeking answers to the mysteries that linger in the shadows. The legend of Bigfoot, known locally as the Minerva Monster, is woven into the very fabric of the land. The region is a mosaic of wild and cultivated spaces, where thick forests give way to open meadows and winding creeks. This patchwork creates countless places for secrets to hide. Minerva sits at the crossroads of Stark, Carroll, and Columbiana counties, each marked by its own labyrinth of wooded hollows and shadowed valleys. The forests here are ancient, dominated by towering oaks, maples, and hickories. Their dense canopy creates a world of perpetual twilight, where moss and lichen thrive and the air is cool even on the hottest summer days. Wildlife flourishes in this secluded environment. Deer move silently through the undergrowth, foxes dart between shadows, and owls watch from their hidden perches. At dawn, white-tailed deer graze in the misty meadows, while raccoons and wild turkeys leave their marks along the muddy banks of winding streams. As night falls, the forest comes alive with sound. Coyotes call to one another across the valleys, their voices mingling with the rustle of unseen creatures in the brush. The return of black bears has left new signs, overturned logs, fresh tracks and claw marks on ancient trees, reminders that these woods remain wild and untamed. In the deepest parts of the forest, fog clings to the ground and ancient roots twist through the earth, creating an atmosphere that is both enchanting and unsettling. The interplay of light and shadow here is mesmerizing. Sunbeams break through the canopy, illuminating swirling dust and the intricate patterns of fallen branches. Every step on the forest floor is met with the crunch of leaves and the snap of twigs, sounds that echo in the stillness and stir the imagination. Sometimes a flash of movement in the undergrowth raises the question, was it just a deer or something else entirely? Creeks and ravines snake through the hills, their banks hidden by thick vegetation. These waterways serve as secret corridors for wildlife and perhaps for legends as well. Over the years, countless stories have emerged, of shadowy figures glimpsed at the edge of vision, shapes that vanish as quickly as they appear. The night brings its own mysteries, strange calls echo through the trees, and the wind carries whispers that seem almost human. In these woods, it's easy to feel watched, as if unseen eyes are tracking every movement from the shadows. The accumulation of unexplained events has made Minerva a focal point for those who seek the unknown. Maps of the area are dotted with reports of strange encounters, each adding to the legend. Local lore is preserved in yellowed newspaper clippings and weathered signs, each a testament to the enduring fascination with what might lurk in the woods. The legend of the Minerva Monster is more than a story. It's a symbol, etched into the landscape and the collective memory of the region. The mystery draws not only storytellers but also researchers and explorers who set up cameras and take notes, hoping to capture evidence of the unknown. The search for answers continues, with every snapped twig and unexplained track fueling the legend further. In the end, it is the land itself, its shadows, its silence, its wildness, that keeps the legend alive. Here, in the deep woods of Ohio, the mystery endures, waiting for the next story to emerge from the mist. The legend that put Minerva, Ohio, on the map erupted in the summer of 1978, forever altering the quiet reputation of this rural community. Nestled among rolling hills and dense forests, Minerva was a place where the rhythms of nature dictated daily life, and the thick woodlands bordering the town had always been a source of both beauty and mystery. In the late 1970s, the region was experiencing an unusually humid summer, with heavy fogs rolling in from the forests and a persistent dampness that seemed to amplify every sound in the night. The thick undergrowth and towering trees created a labyrinth of shadows, making the woods both alluring and intimidating. The Caton family, whose farmhouse sat at the very edge of this wilderness, became the epicenter of a series of events that would soon draw national attention. Their property, bordered by thick woods and a shallow creek, was isolated from the main road, making it an ideal location for something to remain hidden. On a humid August evening, as the sun dipped below the tree line and the air grew heavy, the Catons reported a chilling encounter. A massive, ape-like figure, estimated to be at least 7 feet tall, appeared at their kitchen window. The creature's silhouette was unmistakable, broad-shouldered, covered in matted dark hair, and with eyes that reflected the faint glow of the interior lights. The family's initial shock turned to terror as they realized this was not a one-time occurrence. Over the following nights, they discovered enormous footprints pressed deep into the mud near their home, each print measuring over 14 inches in length. The tracks led from the creek, through the underbrush, and up to the very walls of their house. The surrounding woods, already dense and difficult to navigate, seemed to swallow up the creature whenever it retreated. The Catons described hearing guttural, unearthly screams echoing from the trees, a sound that was later corroborated by several neighbors living along the forest's edge. As word spread, the local authorities were called in to investigate. Deputies found the Caton property in a state of panic, with the family refusing to go outside after dark. The officers themselves reported a lingering pungent odor in the air, described as a mix of wet dog, rotten eggs, and decaying vegetation, commonly cited in other Bigfoot reports across North America. The Minerva Monster story quickly gained traction in the press, with local newspapers and television crews descending on the town. The area around the Caton property became a magnet for amateur investigators, cryptozoologists, and thrill-seekers, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious creature. The woods were soon crisscrossed with makeshift trails as search parties combed the area with flashlights and cameras. Despite the influx of people, the creature remained elusive, vanishing into the thickest parts of the forest whenever anyone approached. Over the following weeks, additional reports surfaced from residents living miles apart. Some described hearing bone-chilling howls late at night, while others claimed to have seen a large, shadowy figure darting between the trees at the edge of their properties. The descriptions were remarkably consistent, a creature of immense size and strength, moving with surprising speed and agility, always managing to evade capture or clear observation. Law enforcement continued to monitor the area, but with no physical evidence beyond footprints and the persistent odor, the case remained unsolved. The official stance was one of caution, urging residents to remain vigilant, but offering no concrete explanation. The Minerva Monster became a sensation, with the story spreading far beyond Ohio. The case was featured in national magazines and inspired a wave of interest in cryptozoology, drawing experts and skeptics alike to the region. The environmental context of Minerva, its dense forests, abundant wildlife, and relative isolation, made it a plausible setting for such a creature to exist undetected. The area's network of creeks and ravines provided natural corridors for movement, while the thick canopy offered ample cover. Even after the initial wave of sightings subsided, the legend endured. The Minerva Monster became a permanent fixture in local folklore, a symbol of the unknown that still haunts the forests of eastern Ohio. Today, the story stands as one of the most detailed and credible accounts of a Bigfoot-like creature in the Midwest, supported by physical evidence, environmental factors, and the enduring testimony of those who witnessed the unexplained. The Minerva Monster remains a mystery, a reminder that even in the most familiar landscapes, there are still secrets waiting to be uncovered. For decades, the Minerva Monster lingered as a shadowy tale from the past, a legend whispered among the rolling hills and dense forests of rural Ohio. The story, rooted in the 1970s, seemed to belong to another era, until a recent encounter reignited the mystery. In the crisp air of fall 2021, filmmaker and researcher Seth Breedlove, known for his meticulous investigations into unexplained phenomena, found himself drawn once again to Minerva. He was there to document the enduring legend, but what he experienced would blur the line between observer and participant. The team's base of operations was nestled on a rural property, surrounded by a patchwork of fields and thick woodland. The landscape was alive with the subtle sounds of nature, distant bird calls, the rustle of leaves, and the faint hum of insects, all under a sky washed clean by autumn sunlight. The property itself sat not far from the original sighting locations, its boundaries marked by old fences and the encroaching edge of the forest. The air was fresh, tinged with the earthy scent of fallen leaves and damp soil. It was just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun high and unfiltered, casting sharp shadows across the open clearings. The setting was anything but ominous. No fog, no twilight, just the stark clarity of midday. Seth rode as a passenger in a side-by-side utility vehicle, the tires crunching over gravel and grass as they followed a path that cut through a wide gas line clearing. The vehicle's engine was a steady drone, blending with the ambient sounds of the woods. These clearings, carved out for underground pipelines, formed unnatural corridors through the otherwise unbroken forest. The grass here grew tall and wild, bordered on both sides by dense stands of trees, their trunks forming a wall of shadow and green. As the vehicle rolled forward, Seth's gaze swept the landscape, alert to any sign of movement. Suddenly, in the periphery of his vision, a large, dark shape burst from the tree line and sprinted across the clearing. The moment was so brief, less than a second, that it felt almost unreal, a flicker of motion against the sunlit grass. The object's passage was marked by a ripple in the tall grass, a fleeting shadow that seemed to defy the stillness of the afternoon. Seth's heart pounded as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. He later described the figure as a deep, almost jet-black brown, its form both lanky and powerfully built. The creature's silhouette was unmistakable, broad-shouldered, with a head that seemed to sit directly atop its torso, lacking any visible neck. Instinctively, Seth compared the figure to known wildlife. It was neither deer nor bear. Its proportions and movement were entirely different, more upright and deliberate. What struck him most was the creature's gait. Its arms pumped in a distinctly human-like fashion, but the motion was smoother, more controlled, and imbued with a sense of immense strength. Each stride covered ground with astonishing efficiency. The absence of a neck, the sheer width of the shoulders, and the upright posture all matched descriptions from previous Bigfoot reports. Yet, seeing it firsthand, even for a split second, was profoundly unsettling. Seth estimated the figure's height to be less than the legendary 8 feet, but it was still remarkably large, solid and imposing, with a presence that seemed to command the space around it. The speed at which the creature crossed the clearing was almost beyond belief. In a heartbeat, it vanished into the dense undergrowth on the far side, leaving only the memory of its passage and the disturbed grass in its wake. The encounter left Seth in a state of shock and awe. Years of listening to eyewitness accounts had not prepared him for the intensity of seeing something so inexplicable with his own eyes. The brevity of the sighting gnawed at him. He replayed the moment in his mind, searching for details, wishing for another glimpse. But the forest had already swallowed its secret. Doubt crept in almost immediately. Had he truly seen what he thought he saw, or had his mind filled in the gaps with expectation and legend? He considered every possibility, a trick of the light, a parallax illusion caused by the movement of the vehicle, or perhaps a small animal in the foreground appearing larger and faster than it was. Yet the clarity of the moment, the vividness of the figure, and the unmistakable sense of something extraordinary lingered. Seth's glimpse added a new, highly detailed chapter to the Minerva Monster legend, reminding all who venture into the woods of eastern Ohio that the unknown still waits just beyond the edge of sight. The memory of that split-second sighting haunted Seth Breedlove. But to truly understand what had happened, a meticulous recreation was necessary, one that would strip away assumptions and focus on the raw details of the environment, the conditions, and the possibilities. The team began by analyzing the landscape as it stood in early 2026. The clearing, once narrow and overgrown, had transformed. The gas line cut was now twice as wide, the ground beneath a patchwork of gravel and wild grass, and the once concealed dirt path had become a visible trail. Environmental analysis revealed that the changes in the landscape could have affected visibility, acoustics, and even the movement of wildlife. The team measured distances, angles, and sight lines, carefully reconstructing the vantage point from which the original sighting occurred. Atmospheric conditions were also considered. The original sighting took place at dusk, when the interplay of fading light and deepening shadows can distort perception. The team recreated these lighting conditions, noting how the low sun cast elongated shapes and how the mist softened the edges of objects. To test possible explanations, the team examined the movement patterns of local wildlife. They set up motion-activated cameras and observed deer, bears, and smaller mammals as they crossed the clearing, comparing their speed and silhouette to the original description. None of the animals matched the size, speed, or upright posture reported in the sighting. The team also considered the possibility of a human presence, but the distances and the rapidity of the movement made this explanation unlikely. The recreation itself was conducted with scientific precision. Markers were placed to indicate the start and end points of the sighting, and high-speed cameras captured every angle. The team simulated the event multiple times, adjusting for height, stride length, and speed. The most striking result was the speed. Even at a full sprint, the simulated figures could not replicate the blur of motion described in the original encounter. The distance was covered in seconds, but the original sighting had been almost instantaneous, a flash that defied normal explanation. Environmental factors were scrutinized for possible illusions. The team tested the parallax theory, placing objects of various sizes at different distances to see if a plant or tree could be mistaken for a large moving figure. The results were inconclusive. While some shapes could be misleading, none matched the dynamic, purposeful movement witnessed that day. The atmospheric buildup was undeniable. As dusk deepened and the forest grew quiet, the sense of anticipation was palpable. Every rustle, every shifting shadow seemed to hint at something just out of sight, something that could, for a moment, defy explanation. In the end, the recreation did not provide a definitive answer, but it did rule out many conventional explanations, and it underscored the extraordinary nature of the original event. The fleeting glimpse, the impossible speed, and the scale of the figure remained as mysterious as ever, etched into the landscape and into the minds of those who sought to understand what truly happened in the Minerva woods that night. The mystery on the Minerva property did not fade with time. Instead, for Heather Moser, a researcher and member of the filmmaking crew who now resides on the land, the enigma has only deepened. woven into the very fabric of her daily existence. After a period of relative calm, likely due to the disruptive sounds of logging and gas line drilling, the woods seemed to reclaim their secrets. By the spring of 2025, the environment had grown eerily still, as if holding its breath, and the strange phenomena returned with renewed intensity. The woods surrounding Heather's home became a stage for a series of inexplicable events. On nights when the moon hung low and full, the air would thicken with anticipation. The usual chorus of crickets and distant owls would abruptly fall silent, replaced by a heavy, expectant hush. During the full moon lunar eclipse in mid-March, Heather was awakened by a sound that defied explanation, a deep, resonant howl that seemed to vibrate through the walls of her home. The howl, lasting nearly 10 seconds, was unlike any coyote, dog, or known animal in the region. Its timbre was both mournful and commanding, echoing through the hills and stirring the night into chaos. As the howl faded, a sudden eruption of wings and frantic chirping broke out from a bamboo patch near the house. The flock of birds, usually silent and hidden at night, burst into the air in a panic, their flight a living alarm that something unnatural was moving through the darkness. In the tense silence that followed, Heather heard deliberate, heavy footsteps crunching over gravel and fallen leaves, approaching the very corner of her house. The sound was measured and purposeful, as if the unseen visitor was surveying the dwelling, testing the boundaries between the wild and the domestic. The following day, the sense of unease lingered. The woods seemed to press closer, their shadows deeper and more impenetrable. Even in daylight, the atmosphere was charged with a subtle tension, as if the forest itself was watching. Over the weeks that followed, Heather began to notice a pattern of sharp, percussive knocks echoing through the trees. These wood knocks, often reported in Bigfoot research, would ring out suddenly, sometimes in response to her own movements, other times in the dead of night when the world was otherwise still. The sound was unmistakable, a heavy, deliberate strike against solid wood, reverberating through the forest like a coded message. On one occasion, while recording a voice message for a friend, Heather inadvertently captured a loud, distinct wood knock in the background. The recording, later analyzed, revealed a sound that stood out starkly from the ambient noises of the forest, clear, forceful, and undeniably intentional. The phenomena were not limited to the night. On a bright afternoon, a sudden, forceful knock rattled the living room window. No one was visible outside, and the window itself was well above ground level, out of reach for most animals. The incident left Heather and her family shaken, the sense of vulnerability heightened by the daylight intrusion. Each event, howls that pierced the night, footsteps that circled the house, wood knocks echoing through the trees, and unexplained disturbances at the windows, wove together into a tapestry of the unknown. The emotional toll was profound, a constant undercurrent of anxiety, awe, and curiosity. The forest, once a place of peace, had become a realm of mystery, its secrets pressing ever closer to the threshold of Heather's home. For Heather Moser, the Minerva Monster is not a distant legend or a fleeting shadow. It is a living, breathing presence, one that makes itself known through the language of the wild, the silence of the woods, and the unshakable feeling that something extraordinary is watching from just beyond the trees. In an effort to obtain objective evidence of the unexplained activity surrounding her property, Heather Moser implemented a systematic approach. She deployed a high-sensitivity audio recorder within the barn, a structure that had become a focal point for unusual occurrences. The barn itself is a classic rural outbuilding, constructed of aged timber, partially insulated, and surrounded by dense woodland. Its interior is cluttered with agricultural tools, metal implements, and a four-wheeler, all of which create a complex acoustic environment. The placement of the recorder was strategic. Positioned low to the ground and centrally located, it was designed to maximize the capture of both ambient and direct sounds, while minimizing interference from wind or external noise. The device itself was a digital field recorder, capable of capturing a wide frequency range, from subsonic vibrations to high-pitched animal calls. This allowed for a detailed analysis of any anomalous sounds, including their amplitude, duration, and spectral characteristics. Within just 15 minutes of activation, the recorder documented a sequence of low-frequency impacts, interpreted as heavy, deliberate footsteps entering the barn. The acoustic profile of these steps was markedly different from those of common wildlife, such as raccoons or stray cats, which typically produce lighter, more erratic patterns. Subsequent audio events included the shifting and rattling of metal objects, as well as the distinct sound of items being manipulated. Spectrographic analysis revealed irregular, non-repetitive movements, suggesting the presence of a large, inquisitive animal rather than wind or mechanical vibration. Notably, a series of sharp, percussive taps were recorded on the metallic body of the four-wheeler. The resonance and force of these taps indicated a significant mass behind the contact, further supporting the hypothesis of a large animal presence. The most compelling segment of the recording features a series of deep, rhythmic huffing and sniffing sounds. These were captured in close proximity to the microphone, with the amplitude and clarity suggesting the source was mere feet from the device. The breath patterns were consistent with those of a large mammal, exhibiting both power and control. Environmental factors were carefully considered in the analysis. The barn's partial enclosure and the presence of metallic surfaces contributed to unique reverberations. But the primary sounds, footsteps, object manipulation and breathing, remained distinct and unambiguous, ruling out most natural explanations such as wind, settling wood, or small animals. The timing of the events is also significant. The activity occurred during daylight hours, a period when human presence and noise are typically deterrents for wildlife. The proximity of the sounds to the recorder and the lack of any visual confirmation add to the mystery. From a technical perspective, the recordings provide a rare opportunity for objective study. The combination of low-frequency impacts, metallic interactions, and mammalian breathing forms a coherent narrative of a large physical entity exploring the barn environment. Possible interpretations range from the presence of an undocumented animal species to the intrusion of a known but unusually bold animal. However, the scale and behavior implied by the audio data challenge conventional explanations. In summary, the barn recordings stand as a compelling piece of evidence, rich in detail, resistant to simple dismissal, and open to rigorous scientific scrutiny. They deepen the enigma of the Minerva Monster, offering a tangible, data-driven glimpse into the unknown that continues to haunt the rural landscape. The region surrounding Minerva, Ohio, is more than just a backdrop for stories. It's a living, breathing landscape steeped in mystery and legend. Here, the land itself seems to invite the unknown, with its rolling hills, dense forests, and labyrinthine wetlands forming a natural tapestry that has inspired tales for generations. Stretching from the Appalachian foothills in the south to the windswept shores of Lake Erie in the northeastern Ohio, is a patchwork of ancient woodlands, meandering rivers, and shadowy swamps. The forests are thick with towering oaks, maples, and pines, their canopies so dense that sunlight barely touches the mossy ground below. Ferns and wildflowers carpet the forest floor, while hidden creeks wind through rocky ravines, their waters whispering secrets to those who listen. The geography here is as varied as it is dramatic. Deep valleys carved by glacial meltwater give way to broad, fertile farmlands and tangled marshes where fog lingers long after sunrise. In the early morning, mist drifts over the wetlands, blurring the line between reality and myth. The land is dotted with ancient boulders and stone mounds, remnants of a time when Native American tribes called these woods home. Some of these stones bear petroglyphs, mysterious carvings that hint at legends far older than the written word. Local folklore is woven into the very fabric of this environment. Stories of shadowy figures moving silently among the trees, of strange cries echoing through the night, and of footprints found in the mud after a heavy rain have been passed down for centuries. The indigenous peoples spoke of wild men and forest spirits, guardians of the land who could vanish without a trace. Early settlers added their own tales, describing encounters with massive, hairy creatures that seemed to melt into the wilderness. The proximity to Lake Erie adds another layer to the region's mystique. The lake's vast, restless waters have their own legends: phantom ships, mysterious lights, and creatures said to dwell in the depths. Along the shoreline, dense forests press right up to the water's edge, creating a boundary where land and legend meet. The shifting weather, with sudden storms and thick fog, only deepens the sense of isolation and possibility. Ashtabula County, with its sprawling woodlands and secluded ravines, is a focal point for these stories. The landscape here is wild and largely untouched, offering countless hiding places for any creature clever enough to avoid detection. The region's remoteness, combined with its rich biodiversity, makes it an ideal setting for legends to take root and grow. Even today, the environment remains largely unchanged. Ancient trees stand as silent witnesses to the passage of time, their gnarled branches reaching skyward like the arms of forgotten giants. Rain falls softly on the pine needles, and the air is thick with the scent of earth and growing things. At night, the forest comes alive with the calls of owls and the rustle of unseen animals moving through the undergrowth. This is a landscape that both conceals and reveals, where the boundaries between the known and the unknown are as shifting as the morning mist. It is a place where legends are born, nurtured by the land itself. A land that, for those who venture into its depths, still holds more questions than answers. To truly grasp why Bigfoot legends endure in eastern Ohio, we must first immerse ourselves in the region's natural tapestry, a landscape shaped by millennia of ecological evolution and seasonal change. This is a land of abundance, where ancient hardwoods, oak, hickory, and maple, tower above a living mosaic of ferns, wildflowers, and berry bushes. The forest floor is alive with the subtle movements of countless creatures, and the air is rich with the scent of earth and growing things. The Appalachian foothills here are a labyrinth of steep ravines, mossy boulders, and hidden caves, with rocky creeks winding through the thick woods. These features create a natural fortress, offering endless places for wildlife to hide and thrive. The region's biodiversity is remarkable. Streams and springs provide fresh water, while berry bushes, nut trees, and fruiting plants offer a year-round buffet for herbivores and omnivores alike. In places, the woods are so dense that sunlight barely reaches the ground. Narrow animal trails wind through the undergrowth, invisible to all but the most observant eye, allowing creatures to move undetected for miles. The fauna here is as varied as the flora. White-tailed deer, wild turkeys, foxes, and countless small mammals share the woods with songbirds, woodpeckers, and raptors. White-tailed deer are especially prolific, their trails crisscrossing the landscape and providing a reliable food source for predators. Herds of deer move quietly through the clearings, often bedding down in tall grass or beneath the shelter of low-hanging branches. Squirrels, rabbits, chipmunks, and a chorus of birds add to the region's vibrancy, each species playing a role in the complex web of life. Coyotes, now well established, fill the night with their haunting calls, while their tracks reveal a constant, unseen presence. Raccoons and opossums, masters of adaptation, thrive in the shadows, foraging by night and leaving only subtle traces of their passage. The black bear, once rare, has made a quiet comeback, its presence a testament to the forest's ability to support large omnivores. Bears leave behind subtle clues, scat, claw marks, and overturned logs, reminders that the wild here is never far away. while some sightings of shadowy figures may be attributed to bears. The forest's density and shifting light often play tricks on the eyes, fueling speculation and legend. The interplay of light and shadow, combined with the forest's natural acoustics, can transform ordinary animal movements into something extraordinary, sparking stories that endure for generations. Tracks and signs left in the mud or undergrowth are often ambiguous, open to interpretation and imagination. The forest's natural sounds, rustling leaves, snapping branches, distant calls, can easily be mistaken for something more mysterious, especially as dusk falls. Weather and seasonal changes further shape the legend. Spring brings a surge of new growth and animal activity, while autumn's falling leaves reveal hidden trails and fresh tracks. Winter's snow preserves footprints, and summer's lushness conceals all. The sheer scale of these forests, with their rolling hills and endless canopy, creates a sense of mystery and possibility. There are places here where no human has set foot in decades. The abundance of food and shelter supports a thriving ecosystem, making it plausible for even the most elusive creatures to remain hidden. Creeks and ravines act as natural corridors, allowing animals to travel undetected for miles, their paths marked only by subtle changes in the landscape. The forest's thick undergrowth and secluded glens are perfect for concealing both predator and prey, and perhaps something more. As the sun sets and the forest is bathed in golden light or shrouded in morning mist, the line between reality and legend blurs. The wild heart of Ohio, shaped by its flora, fauna, and ever-changing environment, remains a place where the unknown can still find refuge, and where the legend of Bigfoot continues to thrive. For centuries, stories of mysterious, elusive creatures have echoed through the forests, mountains, and wild places of nearly every continent. From the snowbound slopes of the Himalayas to the dense, shadowy woods of North America, legends of wild, hairy humanoids have persisted across cultures and generations. The enduring belief in Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Yowie, and countless other cryptids is not simply a matter of folklore or wishful thinking. It is a phenomenon rooted in the complex interplay of psychology, environment, and culture. Psychologically, humans are hardwired to seek patterns and meaning in the world around us. In the vast, unpredictable wilderness, our senses are heightened and our minds are primed to interpret ambiguous sights and sounds as potential threats or unknown presences. This tendency, known as pareidolia, can transform a fleeting shadow or an unusual footprint into evidence of something extraordinary. The environment itself plays a crucial role. The forests of North America, the remote valleys of the Himalayas, and the wilds of Australia are places where the unknown still lingers. These landscapes are immense, often impenetrable, and filled with natural phenomena that defy easy explanation. In such settings, the possibility of undiscovered species, especially large, elusive mammals, remains plausible to many. Culturally, the legend of Bigfoot and similar creatures serves as a modern myth, a narrative that connects us to the mysteries of the natural world and to our own ancestral past. These stories offer a sense of wonder and possibility, reminding us that not everything has been discovered, catalogued, or explained. In an era dominated by technology and information, the idea that there are still secrets hidden in the wilderness is both comforting and thrilling. It speaks to a deep-seated desire for adventure, for the unknown, and for the preservation of wild places that remain beyond human control. The evidence that fuels belief is rarely definitive, but it is persistent. Footprints, hair samples, unexplained sounds, and ambiguous images accumulate over time, forming a body of circumstantial data that resists easy dismissal. The lack of conclusive proof does not diminish the allure. Instead, it keeps the mystery alive, inviting ongoing investigation and debate. The legend of Bigfoot also reflects our relationship with nature itself. As urbanization spreads and wild spaces shrink, the idea of a creature that has evaded human detection becomes a symbol of nature's resilience and autonomy. It is a reminder that the world is not yet fully tamed and that some corners remain untouched by human hands. On a deeper level, belief in Bigfoot is an expression of hope, a hope that there is still magic in the world, that the unknown endures, and that our sense of wonder has not been extinguished by modernity. Ultimately, the story of Bigfoot is not just about the search for a creature, but about the search for meaning in a world that often feels mapped and measured. It challenges us to question what we know, to respect the mysteries that remain, and to keep alive the spirit of curiosity and exploration. As long as there are forests to explore and shadows to peer into, the legend will persist, reminding us that the world is still full of questions, and that sometimes believing in the unknown is its own reward. While legends and eyewitness accounts have fueled the allure of the Minerva Monster for decades, a quieter but equally persistent effort has unfolded in the background, the scientific investigation. In the aftermath of the original sightings, researchers from various disciplines, biology, ecology, and anthropology, have converged on the Minerva area, determined to separate myth from measurable fact. The first wave of inquiry focused on the physical evidence collected at the scene. Plaster casts of unusual footprints found near the Clayton family's property were meticulously measured and analyzed. Experts scrutinized the depth, stride, and dermal ridges, comparing them to known animal tracks. Soil samples from the impressions were tested for anomalies in weight distribution, aiming to determine whether a creature of significant mass could have created such prints. Though the results were inconclusive, the casts remain a subject of ongoing debate among cryptozoologists and wildlife specialists. Environmental DNA sampling, an emerging technique at the time, was later employed in the hopes of detecting traces of unknown species. Water from nearby streams, soil from the barn, and even traces from tree bark where alleged hair samples were found were all sent to laboratories. The majority of results pointed to common wildlife deer, raccoon, and coyote. However, a handful of samples contained unidentified genetic markers, sparking further curiosity and calls for expanded research. Acoustic monitoring has also become part of the toolkit. Parabolic microphones and autonomous recording units have been deployed throughout the region, capturing the nighttime symphony of the Minerva woods. Analysts sift through hours of audio, isolating unexplained howls and wood knocks that do not match known animal calls. These recordings, while intriguing, have yet to yield definitive proof, often blurring the line between the natural and the mysterious. Camera traps, positioned along game trails and near reported hotspots, have snapped thousands of images. Most frames reveal only the native fauna, foxes, owls, and the occasional black bear. Yet, every so often, a blurred silhouette or an anomalous shape triggers renewed excitement, prompting further rounds of analysis and speculation. Despite decades of investigation and technological progress, the scientific community remains divided. Some argue that the evidence is simply not robust enough to confirm the existence of a new species. Others maintain that the absence of proof is not proof of absence, noting that many large mammals have eluded discovery for centuries before being formally recognized. In the end, the scientific pursuit of the Minerva Monster is a testament to our enduring curiosity and commitment to understanding the unknown. Each test, each sample, and each recording brings us a step closer, not only to solving a local mystery, but to expanding the boundaries of what we know about the natural world. The quest continues, guided not by belief alone, but by the rigorous, methodical search for truth. As the decades have passed since the first Minerva Monster sightings, the landscape itself has quietly transformed. The woods that once sheltered whispers of the unknown have been shaped by both natural cycles and human influence, leaving subtle but measurable imprints on the environment. Satellite imagery reveals a patchwork of change, expanses of dense forest, giving way to new growth and open clearings where once only thickets stood. Reforestation efforts, spurred by local conservation groups, have altered migration corridors, drawing deer, coyotes and smaller mammals into previously untraveled areas. Meanwhile, agricultural development and the slow creep of suburban expansion have carved new paths through the wilderness, fragmenting habitats and prompting shifts in wildlife behavior. Waterways, too, bear the marks of time. Streams that once ran clear beside the Clayton property now carry traces of increased runoff from nearby fields, subtly changing the aquatic ecosystem. Native fish populations have adapted, while opportunistic species thrive in the altered conditions. The shift has not gone unnoticed by ecologists who monitor these waters for signs of both resilience and vulnerability. The soundscape of Minerva has evolved as well. The chorus of nocturnal creatures now mingles with the distant hum of machinery and the occasional echo of passing vehicles, a reminder that the wild and the civilized are forever intertwined. Bird populations fluctuate with the seasons, while invasive plant species, introduced inadvertently by human hands, compete with native flora for dominance along forest edges. Camera traps and acoustic recorders, initially deployed in search of the extraordinary, have become silent witnesses to these environmental shifts. They document not only the elusive silhouettes and unexplained sounds, but also the daily rhythms of life: foxes foraging at dawn, owls gliding through dusk, saplings pushing through layers of fallen leaves. The Minerva area remains a living laboratory, its changes chronicled in data and in the quiet resilience of its ecosystems. The legend of the monster lingers, but so too does the story of a landscape adapting, evolving and enduring, shaped by forces both seen and unseen. In the interplay between myth and environment, Minerva stands as a testament to the enduring relationship between mystery and the natural world. In the shadowed woods and tangled undergrowth of Minerva, the story of the monster is more than a tale passed among neighbors. Its echoes ripple through the ecosystem itself. Long before camera crews and researchers set foot in these forests, the legend quietly shaped the rhythms of the land and its inhabitants. As word of the monster spread, human traffic along certain trails diminished. Paths once frequented by hunters and hikers fell silent, allowing previously wary species to reclaim territory. Deer herds adjusted their grazing patterns, moving with less fear through areas now avoided by people. The absence of regular human disturbance gave rise to subtle shifts in predator-prey dynamics. Foxes, coyotes, and even elusive bobcats found new corridors for hunting and denning, venturing closer to the heart of the forest. The legend's influence extended to the forest floor. Fewer footsteps meant less compaction of soil and leaf litter, encouraging the return of sensitive understory plants and fungi. Salamanders and ground beetles flourished in the undisturbed dampness, their populations quietly rebounding in the monster's shadow. Birdlife, too, responded. Species sensitive to noise and movement nested deeper within these quieter woods, their calls filling pockets of silence left by absent hikers. Woodpeckers tapped out new territories, and warblers established breeding grounds in thickets left to grow wild. Even waterways felt the legend's touch. Streams running through these once-avoided zones saw less bank erosion and siltation, sheltering aquatic insects and the fish that feed on them. Beavers, undeterred by human stories, expanded their lodges and dams, subtly altering hydrology and creating wetlands that nurtured amphibians and wading birds. Camera traps, set with hopes of capturing the monster, instead chronicled a thriving, shifting web of life, a testament to the indirect power of myth. In a landscape where stories linger, the influence of legend has become woven into the very fabric of the ecosystem, reshaping patterns of life in ways seen only by the most patient observers. Here, the Minerva monster's legacy is not just one of fear or fascination, but of ecological possibility, a reminder that even the most improbable tales can leave a lasting mark on the wild. In the dense forest surrounding Minerva, weather is more than a backdrop. It's an architect of myth. The legend of the monster has always thrived in the interplay between nature's moods and the human imagination, with atmospheric events shaping both sightings and stories. Mist drifts low across the ground in the early morning, blurring the line between tree trunks and shadowy forms. Heavy fog, common in these valleys, cloaks the landscape, muffling sounds and creating optical illusions. It is in these moments, when visibility shrinks and every rustle is amplified, that the monster's silhouette is most often glimpsed, half seen and quickly lost. Thunderstorms, rolling over the hills with their sudden downpours and flashes of lightning, transform the familiar woods into a theatre of uncertainty. Sheet rain distorts vision and washes away tracks, leaving behind only ambiguous impressions in the mud. Wind howls through the canopy, bending branches and sending debris tumbling, masking the movements of wildlife, and perhaps something more. Winter brings its own palette of phenomena. Snow blankets the forest floor, erasing trails and deadening footsteps. Animal tracks crisscross the white expanse, their origins often unclear, fueling speculation about oversized prints or unexplained patterns. The long, cold nights amplify every distant call and crack, while moonlight paints fleeting shadows that dance on the snow. Seasonal floods reshape the waterways, carving new channels and creating isolated pockets of forest. These changes redirect animal movement and alter the landscape, sometimes revealing or concealing evidence that feeds the legend's persistence. Camera footage reveals how weather shapes the creatures of Minerva. Deer and coyotes move differently in rain or fog, their outlines distorted by the elements. Fallen branches, storm-scarred trees, and shifting water levels add layers of complexity to every frame, making it easy for the mind to conjure monsters where there are only natural phenomena. In this ever-changing environment, weather acts as both veil and stage, obscuring details while heightening senses. The Minerva Monster legend is, in part, a child of these atmospheric forces, a story born not just of what is seen, but of what weather allows us and sometimes compels us to imagine. As the decades have passed, the legend of the Minerva Monster has transformed. No longer confined to whispered tales around campfires or grainy newspaper clippings. In the digital age, the monster's shadow stretches further, shaped and reshaped by new technologies and the reach of the internet. Online forums buzz with speculation, where armchair investigators dissect every detail of sightings using satellite imagery and topographic maps. Drone footage, once the domain of professional filmmakers, now sweeps over the Minerva woods, capturing sweeping vistas and searching for signs, unusual clearings, overturned branches, or fleeting movements at the forest's edge. Night vision cameras and motion-triggered trail cams dot the landscape, their lenses capturing the nocturnal ballet of local wildlife, and occasionally unexplained shapes that reignite debate. Social media platforms become echo chambers for both skepticism and belief. Hashtags trend after every purported sighting, while digital artists render the monster in ever more vivid detail, feeding the collective imagination. Podcasts and video essays analyze archival reports, juxtaposing them with modern data. Weather records, animal migration patterns, and even audio analysis of captured howls in the night. But technology does more than document. It democratizes the legend. Anyone can upload a shaky video, a mysterious photograph, or a chilling sound clip, instantly reaching a global audience. Algorithms amplify the most compelling narratives, blurring the lines between fact, fiction, and folklore. The Minerva Monster's footprint is no longer measured in muddy tracks, but in clicks, shares, and streams. In this new era, the legend evolves with each upload and every new piece of data. Scientific skepticism and open-minded curiosity coexist in a digital landscape where the mystery endures, fueling endless inquiry and ensuring that the monster's story, like the forests of Minerva, continues to grow and adapt with the times.